I was talking to a young woman last week, and I asked her how her life had turned out differently than she thought it would. And she said, well, honestly, I thought I would be a famous journalist by now. And I've got to love her honesty. You know, you come from a generation that I'm told lives with a lot of high expectations, and that the people who love you believe that you're important and can make a difference in this world. But you all know the economy is collapsing, and it's hard to find jobs, and it creates a little stress. So I just want to have a sense of where you are in this room. If your life the last year has sort of had medium stress, just ordinary medium stress, can I see your hand? Sort of medium stress. How many of you are medium stress? Okay. How about just a little stress? Not too bad, I'm living with a little. Okay, how about mega stress? Who's got mega stress? All right, you're a pretty stressed out group. That's all I need to know. Because some people say that stress is a global epidemic. It's chronic, it's everywhere. And as I was thinking about what I was going to say to you, I thought about one of my favorite poems by Judith Viorst. It's called Self-Improvement Program. And I'm not going to read you that poem. I think it's a great poem. But I decided I would write you a poem. So I'm apologizing to Judith Viorst because my poem isn't as good as hers. And I'm apologizing to you, but this is what came to me. It's 24/7 with homework, and I'm good on 4 hours of sleep. And I pedal hard to stay ahead, explore ideas, and be well read. I've tried to be hot and be cool, be bad and be sweet, be smart and athletic, befriend all I meet. I've got places to go and people to see, don't want to miss out. I want to be free. I'm learning to read music and play the guitar while I juggle priorities both near and far. I burn the candle at both ends for any of my friends, some who are happy and some who are sad. Gotta help them, hurt not so bad. I've tried to be hot and be cool, be bad and be sweet, be smart and athletic, befriend all I meet. I've got places to go and people to see, a little stressed out, trying to find me. Will I be important, have something to say, succeed in college, keep a good GPA? Can I study and text and tweet, multitask, and take the heat? Can I find a job, take a gap year, become bilingual and be a Peace Corps volunteer? Should I study in France, start a romance, surf every day, live the Jesus way? I've got places to go and people to see. Oh God, help me stop and be. I meet with several chaplains from Harvard University, and they tell me that they are stretched, frenetic, and stressed, and that they feel like they go everywhere, do everything, and meet everyone, that they need to be where it's happening because that is the ethos of Harvard. Go everywhere, do everything, meet everyone. There is no truth in the fact that one day you will grow up and have no stress. Y'all know that, right? You're not going to graduate and get married and make money and have jobs and bring up children and have no stress. Stress is the given. And when I talk to these friends from Harvard, they talk about how the whole ethos of Harvard is shaped by an acronym. Fear of missing out, F-O-M-O, FOMO. Fear of missing out. Now, you don't have to be from Harvard to suffer from FOMO. You know, being stressed doesn't mean you're a bad Christian. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It simply means you live in a world where there are uncontrollables, right? Things you didn't plan on happen. Last year, both of my parents died. My brother said he didn't want anything to do with me. My daughter was robbed. Her apartment was robbed. A 17-year-old friend was raped in her high school classroom. And a woman in my congregation told me I was a bad pastor and a bad friend. Stress. It happens. Things happen that we can't control. And you all know the symptoms. Butterflies in your stomach. Some of you grind your teeth and have to wear those guards at night. Stiff neck. Cravings. Any of you get cravings? Got to have Oreos tonight. Sleep. Some of us sleep because we're stressed. Some of us can't sleep because we're stressed. Binging, purging, cutting, drugging. You know, these symptoms are your body trying to tell you something. Your body's saying, hey, notice me. You've got an internal state of emergency going on. All of those behavioral symptoms are like that fire engine going down the highway, saying, get out of the way, something's going on here. Some of us live from crisis to crisis and stress to stress, and our adrenal glands are always pumping out the juice. And adrenaline is really this wonderful gift from God at a time of stress. Oxytocin is too. But the adrenaline gift gets overused. In fact, we can like the adrenaline edge so much that we say yes to everything, knowing that when the pressure's on, new energy comes online. So we wait till the last minute to study. We wait till the last, because we like that. Under pressure, our adrenals help us out. And often the rush of adrenaline is addictive. It's much preferable to that flat, crashing feeling that happens when you stop. Any of you get that? You go, you go, you go. It feels good. You stop, and what happens? It doesn't feel so good. The adrenals stop pumping. Well, if you really want to be free, the way you sang, if you're longing to have a different rhythm, a more sane way of life, then you're going to have to go through a little adrenaline withdrawal. That's not always very comfortable. Let me just give you a couple symptoms of adrenaline withdrawal. We're afraid we're missing out. FOMO. Can hardly relax because somebody else is having a good time and we're not there. We fidget, we pace, we can't sit, we can't concentrate, we kick our legs. And we feel like if we stop, we're wasting time. You ever feel that way? If I stop, just wasted time. I could be doing something. So it's better and easier to stay in hyperdrive and operate on all cylinders at once and ride that adrenaline rush with all of its oomph. But it's not really better. It's not really better. It's interesting to me that doctors are seeing more and more people who have worn out their adrenal glands. Worn them out. They've used them too much because we aren't meant to rely on adrenaline for everyday living. So I want to give you a little quiz as we begin the year. A stress quiz. Archibald Hart developed this quiz a number of years ago. It's real simple. It's 12 questions, and there's 3 answers. This doesn't apply to me. Sometimes this applies to me, and this always applies to me, okay? Never, sometimes, always. If it never applies to you, it's 0. If it sometimes applies to you, it's 1. If it always applies to you, it's 2. High score is 24. So just keep track as I give you these questions, okay? First question. I feel as if there's never enough time in each day to do all the things I need to do. 0, 1, 2. 2, I tend to speak fast and finish other people's sentences. My friends say I eat too quickly. 4, I tend to be very upset if I lose. 5, I'm very competitive at work, sports, study, you name it. I'm competitive. I have a control streak. 5, I have a control streak. I guess that's 6. I prefer to lead rather than follow. I prefer to lead rather than follow. 8, I feel pressed for time when I'm not doing something. 9, I become impatient if I have to wait. 10, I tend to make decisions quickly, even impulsively. 11, I regularly take on more than I can accomplish. And 12, I become irritable more often than other people. Okay, add up your score. Any of you over 12? Over 15? Anybody got a 24 out there? Good for you. Again, what does this score tell you? It tells you your body's trying to tell you something. Your life is trying to tell you something. Are you listening to it? Are you listening to it? Jesus has an invitation that I want to look at today, and I'm reading it from the Message because I love his words. Are you tired, stressed out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and learn to live freely and lightly. Twice in there is learning. We have to learn rest and learn Sabbath. Jesus had a huge job. Let's just call it saving the world. Pretty big job, right? How do you know if you're done? How do you know if you've done enough today? Have you met enough needs? Have you done enough stuff to get that saving the world thing done? I wonder how Jesus did it, how he knew when to stop, because the pressure to prove himself was always on. There were interruptions, tests, critics, injustices, needs. None of it let up. And Mark tells us that so many people were coming and going that Jesus and his disciples, and I quote, didn't even have a chance to eat. Has that ever been you? So busy you didn't even have a chance to eat? That's Jesus' rhythm here. So how does he handle this schedule? You know, does he just burn the candle at both ends and push and drive and strive and never stop? Jesus said, time out. And he invited his disciples to get away and get some rest. And if you hear one thing today, I want you to hear this. To rest and to call people to rest is an act of spiritual leadership. To rest and to call people to rest is an act of spiritual leadership. And I work with a lot of leaders, Christian leaders, who don't rest. And they think it is spiritual to burn out. This is not Jesus' model. It is spiritual leadership to call people to rest. Jesus chose to miss out on going to every village and healing every person and meeting every need. He didn't go to every party and touch every child and do everything. He took time to rest. And you may feel that resting is impossible, but Jesus has an invitation for you. Come away with me and you'll recover your life. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Recover your life. Recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. I'll teach you to live freely and lightly. Now, I know some of you feel pressure to validate that all the time and expense of an education wasn't wasted on you. And the closer you get to graduation, the higher the stress to prove you're someone who can find a job, hold a job, bring in a salary, be a type A personality, and change the world. But your identity is not riding on what you do when you leave college. I hope you know that. You know, the world does value doers and producers. But if you don't have a self, and you want a self, and you don't know how to find yourself, it's easy to say yes to everything. Because that way you can feel useful and important. At least I'm doing something. At least I'm busy. That's FOMO. I'm doing something to have a self. And saying yes to everything will not help you find that beautiful, sweet, delicious, lovely gift that God has given you in yourself. Now, there was a point in my life when I said yes to everything, and I didn't want to miss out, and I'm a doer. And so I said, yes, I would love to do spiritual formation and pastoral care in the Dominican Republic. That's cool. And I said, yes, I would love to speak at that graduation. That's cool. And yes, I would love to teach a graduate course and write a book. That's all cool. I really didn't want to miss out. And so I pushed my limits, and I pushed my adrenal glands. And God really knew I didn't want to miss out, because missing out means loss. And loss means grieving the loss. And I did not have any time to grieve losses. I was too busy having a life. But eventually, the stress caught up with me, and I got chronic fatigue syndrome, Epstein-Barr virus, and for a whole year I had to stop. And during that year, I gave up spontaneous yeses. Now, we all have a default. If somebody asks you, can you? I bet every one of you has a default. Some of you default yes. Can I? Yes. Some of you are no. And some of you are let me think about it people. Now, my husband is the no, and I'm the yes person. So you can imagine who our children like to talk to. We have a default setting. It's your business to figure out what it is, because you'll go there if you're not paying attention. So I had to give up spontaneous yeses, and that meant even if somebody called me and said, you know, could we go to the beach? I would say, I'll call you back in 2 minutes. Because I just needed space to say, is this FOMO? Am I afraid of missing? Why am I going to go to the beach? Is this a choice for health? Is this about finding a self? Or am I okay to be here? Am I good enough? Am I valued if I say no? Well, I began to say no to people, and people didn't like it. And they would say, you're good at it. You did it last year. What do you mean you can't? But we want you to come, and it's really hard to let people down and say no. But you know what? I was no longer willing to live with the illusion, the mythology, the stupidity, the grandiosity of thinking I could go everywhere, do everything, and meet everyone. Duh! Who can do that? You can't do that. I had been confusing having a self with being indispensable and on call 24/7. Because it made me feel good and alive. And then I had Jesus' invitation to learn a different way of living, a way of living that is unforced rhythms of grace. I had the possibility of saying no and reclaiming some of my life and becoming a human being rather than a human doing. That year of stopping was a gift to me. You know, slaves are human doings, and they have no rest, no time off, no 6-day work week, no reprieve. Slaves can't stop. And you may not feel like a slave per se, but if you can't stop something, you're not free. You're a slave to something. And it simply may be that you're a slave to study, good things, or maybe you're a slave to your Xbox, or to exercise, to working out, to coffee, to highs, to parties. If you have an income, you can even be a slave with a salary. If you can't stop, that's slavery. Adam and Eve were given work to do by God, but the work wasn't who they were. Their value was not determined by what they produced. Work was an expression of the goodness of who they already were, that they were loved and cherished human beings. And they had nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Doesn't that sound like freedom? Nothing to prove and nothing to hide. If you have nothing to prove and nothing to hide, you're not stressed in the same way. Adam and Eve, I don't believe they were stressed about producing. And every evening, they could stop at the end of the day and go walk with God and have some downtime and relationship time. But you know the story. One day, FOMO caught up with them. What if that fruit is really good and we've missed out? What if God is withholding? We better try it. Who knows what we're missing? And they made a choice that made them uncomfortable in their own naked skin. And in fact, they were so stressed about it that they worked overtime sewing fig leaf aprons to cover up that discomfort about who they were going to see at the end of the day. The human being became the human doing, someone who needs to do something to prop up or protect or enhance or hide who they are. And from that moment on, the never-ending project of sewing fig leaves of education and success and productivity and achievements together to prove our self-worth began. Restless and insecure, we become slaves to doing. The more we do, the better we feel. But Jesus had important things to do, and over he stopped and withdrew and centered himself in his connection with God. He made some space for God to show up, and he practiced Sabbath, which is 24/6 living, and he lived the unforced rhythms of grace, just as God the Creator. God, even if you go back to Genesis, God tackled the job of creating in chunks, leaving these rhythmic spaces between evening and morning, beginning and ending. God wasn't compelled to keep busy. I've got to do it all in 4 days. Why should I take 7, God's way of existing, I don't know if you've thought about this. I've thought a lot about it. God's way of existing is restful. He has a restful existence, and he's not defined by constant activity and perpetual motion, but by love, by presence. Love is about presence. God didn't work 24/7. Jesus didn't work 24/7. They stopped. There was time for beginnings and endings, silence, rest. And I love, one of my favorite books is in Revelation 6:1, one of my favorite verses. It says, there's silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. How long do you suppose that is in eternity? How would you do? Silence for the space of half an hour. We get to just be with the family of God and with God in silence. Human beings aren't meant to be people who work 24/7 because the stress is too much. And producing won't make you important or solve all your problems. To live Jesus' unforced rhythms of grace, you're going to go on a learning curve. Now, I learned in the year that I was flat to say no to all kinds of things. But I still had a lot to learn about rest, because I can say no to one kind of work only to go clean out the closet and post all the vacation photos on Facebook and shop. And none of those are really restful for me. So I've just switched one work activity that I get paid for all the work activity I don't get paid for. I still had to learn about rest. I can be doing behaviors that sap my time, money, and energy just like work. Because I like them, because they feel good. I've discovered more recently, this learning curve keeps going, not so long ago, I discovered that some of my not work behaviors are actually soft addictions. Have you ever heard that term? Soft addictions. I read about it in the newspaper and went, oh no, I have soft addictions. 91% of us have soft addictions, and soft addictions are behaviors we cannot stop. I can't get up without a cup of coffee. I don't know what your soft addiction is. It's an overuse often of good things, like if I don't exercise, I'm going to be grumpy all day. Okay, you want to tell yourself that story? It's an addiction. TV, playing video games, texting, hanging out way too late at night. Can't leave anybody else in the room, because if you leave, maybe they'll talk about you. Or maybe they'll have fun without you. It's an addiction, a soft addiction. Not going to kill you, but it's not going to help you recover your life and be free. To do that, you're going to have to lean into some rhythms of letting go. You're going to have to accept a spirituality of subtraction, not just addition. And some of us look at spiritual practices and say, we just need to add more. I'm going to get up earlier. I'm going to pray harder. I'm going to talk to more, whatever. Let some of that go. I'm going to rest. I'm going to enjoy my coffee, but I'm not going to need my coffee. Have to have my exercise. I'm going to be free. I'm going to be free. God's rhythm is a 24/6 rhythm. Can you feel that beat? 24/6. It's the rhythm of being human and fully alive. And God's rhythm isn't snarled up with finding an identity through doing. It doesn't run on adrenaline or FOMO. It's about keeping Sabbath and resting. And those are the things that keep on giving you life. You want a gift that keeps on giving? Give yourself some rest and some Sabbath. Remind yourself that you don't have to do to keep this world turning, that God's got it under control. Do you want to recover your life? Do you want to make a move against that grandiosity of I'm so important that I have to do? Then say yes to this invitation to recover your life and go walking with God in the cool of the day or the heat of the day or whenever is good for you. Lay your deadly doing down, because you are actually missing out on something. Think of the oceans of time spent with God and the family of God that actually goes missing when all we can do is produce. What's missing from our life does matter. Rest, love, patience, joy, peace, grace. What goes missing from your life when you don't stop? Last week, I was preparing my sermon and I'd worked 7 hours on it when I discovered that I had worked 7 hours on the wrong text for Sunday morning. Stress again. And so I started to complain to God right away. How will I ever do all of this? How will I ever get all this done? And I started complaining, and then it was like God said, you know what you're complaining about? You're complaining about studying the Bible for 7 hours. I just had to laugh. You know, I have a choice. I could turn the rest of my week into a disaster, you know, shut out my husband, shut out my appointments because I have to get this done. And it could be all about me. Or I can say, this is what happened, and God is in this and will work in this, and I'm going to be free to live freely and lightly in this week. I receive it and accepted it. And every time my husband spoke to me, I shut my laptop. That's freedom. Just a minute, don't talk to me now. Nope, shut the laptop. Freedom. You can learn from Jesus to live a restful existence. And if you lean into this practice of rest, 1/7 of your life is rest. That's 52 days a year, 3,640 days in 7 years. And if you live 10 years, that is, if you live 70 years, that's 10 years of days off. 10 years of Sabbath. And where I come from, that's 10 years of snow days. Woohoo! I've tried to be hot, be cool, be bad, and be sweet, be smart and athletic, befriend all I meet. I've got places to go and people to see. Oh God, won't you help and stop me be? All you SoCal people, embrace Sabbath life and experiment. Imagine what could happen when you don't live to prove yourself and you learn to live freely and lightly.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.